Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is another recap from our live stream from earlier this week, in which we are trying to devise a successful delivery method for our Disposal Unit Rover to our lab on the moon. Now, this is not just to get the rover on site so that it can do its job. This also has the task of carrying the old wrecked power couple module away from the lunar base and blowing it up in orbit. So that's why we've made a lot of the design decisions that we have. Currently, we are trying to figure out a way to get these fairings to attach to hinges so that they can be opened for rover deployment and then closed again so that they can keep the old power couple inside during its disposal part of its task. So with some help from the chat, we've figured out that if you rotate these fairings around to a certain way, that they can actually be attached to the hinges and not just to the mount points on the fairing themselves, which is a super useful thing to know. Although I did struggle with this for quite a while, but had I known that all you have to do is rotate them about 90 degrees offset, that you can make this thing work exactly the way as intended, and then by placing the hinges and the fairings appropriately, you can get a nice, clean, finished look on the whole thing. And so with that at least loosely accomplished, we can duplicate it across both sides and try to get the sizing and the fitment correct, of which it is just about right. I should have used fairings that were not opaque, but we'll make sure to group these in their own action group, and good. They seem to articulate pretty well and stay clear of the fairing base themselves, so we'll just rename this group to clamshell so that we can keep track of it a little later. And I guess we need them opened up so that we can do the rest of our task, but first we should make sure that the hinges aren't going to rotate all the way around. I know the placement on those hinges with their attachment to the fairing is a little off. I do plan on going back and getting that right later, but we've got a lot of other technical problems that we're going to have to deal with. And aside from that, we're going to have to reshape the fairings later after we have all of the other internal mechanisms built in. So it's nice to at least have a little bit of their portion exposed. So now we've got them tucked in and looking a whole lot nicer. I'm still just not 100% on their axis of movement. I feel like the hinges should be facing out. But anyway, we're going to take this outside very, very quickly and give this a test run. Clamshells seem to be articulating quite well. It gives us plenty of clearance to drive the rover off a ledge, and then we'll jump back in and make some improvements. So now we can start worrying about how to actually get the rover off of this lander, because it's probably going to sit a little higher off the ground than just what this build has on it so far, because we do need a descent stage that will also include some fuel left over to lift off again from the surface of the moon and properly dispose of that power couple. So our first instinct here was to go with a gantry rail, as we can just get a nice laterally sliding motion, and it sizes down very conveniently with a single step, although it doesn't snap to the center of the fairing base, which is a little frustrating. But initially, I was instructed to use wing segments to build a platform to hold the rover itself, but I opted instead to go with the structural panels just because they're going to be a whole lot easier to place and to size correctly, although the placement points were not cooperating very well, so I just temporarily moved the gantry rail off to the side and built the platform out here. Worked out relatively well until this started happening, but we got a nice big platform. We tried to very eloquently set it down on the center of the fairing base. You see exactly how well that works out, but nothing we can't fix without the shift tool. There it is. A little too wide for our base, so we took out these corners here, and instead of me going around and placing them one by one, we can just use these corner pieces, or these triangles, and that makes a much more form-fitting triangle, or much more form-fitting platform than before. And this is probably step one. We can get the platform about halfway out of the fairing. We would like a lot more articulation on that, but of course that's going to require more and more robotics parts. So first thing we'll do is get the rover placed on the platform, since we can use that as one whole part. This way we can move that around all on its own. We're probably going to need to add some other parts to make this whole thing work. So for the time being, we will set rover and platform aside, giving us easy access to our robotics. We will add a hinge and hopefully set it up on a different action group, maybe so that it can articulate down. And that will tip the platform a little bit. Yeah, a lot of it. I don't think we can actually drive up a slope that steep, although things on the moon are a little different since the gravity is a lot lower. But it's certainly worth a try. But common knowledge being the thing, we're going to duplicate our gantry rail hinge system over a second time. This will give us twice as much reach, and of course the ability to adjust the angle on the platform at the end of the day a little bit more, so we can lower it like this and then actually flatten out the platform a little bit. It does look like we need to be a little bit lower. We just had a little bit more extension on that gantry rail. Things might go just a little bit better for us. But I feel like this system is probably worth taking outside and giving it a quick run. I did not want to copy that. We're going to go up to third gantry rail for ultimate articulation. No hinge, however. And then, yes, of course, everything is offset a little bit because these robotic parts don't snap to the center like they should. And that is so incredibly frustrating. But with the third rail, even without a hinge, we can get a much more stable approach to the surface and much better levels of articulation. So if we just center everything out, I think this is worthy of taking outside for a test run. So we'll center that rail and then center this one and then collapse them into the fairing base, which is super cheaty. But anyway, here's old me during the live stream. Probably should have removed these clamps first, but every time I go through and collect these things, the game crashes, which is extra weird. Oh no. Yeah, well, that's a thing. Alright. Oh, don't you dare fall over. Edit groups. I should have put them in groups. Oh boy. But it's working so well. What the hell is happening? Accurate simulations of moon conditions are accurate. So totally gonna up the speed. There we go. That's level. Riding the escalator down. Okay. Well, Wookie, I think all right, Wookie, I'm gonna read through that in its entirety in just a second. As soon as if I can get this thing off of this pad. Oh, what? Yeah, that's what I meant to click on. Decouple. Kathunk. Switch. Brakes. Perfect. Alright. The controls are inverted. Dang it, come on. Control from here. This is going to help out so much. All right. Wow, that was some impressive maneuverability. Oh, really? That's a thing, huh? Yeah, that is a thing. That's actually very much a thing. Okay. I don't think I could drive off of the platform if I had only one of these panels openable. Okay, so I can in fact, no, okay. You know what, we're done here. Revert to flight, revert to VAB. Back in the VAB, I was ready to call this cut, print, and ready to ship, but the chat had a much better idea that could help simplify this entire process a whole lot and hopefully eliminate a lot of our accessory robotics. So we started by changing the save name so that we don't overwrite any of this magical wondery that is the robotics I came up with. And we're going to start by shifting our first gantry rail all the way to the back. And this buys us the entire length of its articulation versus just half the length of its articulation like I was using before. So that should, in theory, at least eliminate the need for one whole other gantry rail. And basically the idea was to plant the hinge on the very back of the platform instead of the middle as we have it currently placed. And this would help maximize that while keeping everything inside the fairing, but it did require some creative rerouting that Kerbal Space Program was not all that happy with. And after a little bit of a struggle of the chat trying to explain to me exactly how to go about doing this and what to do, we did in fact reroute to the rear panel, and then we could just pick up the whole platform by the hinge and attach it there. Bingo. And that actually gives us a lot more range on the articulation of that primary gantry rail, although it did do some creative things about where and what articulates. So we needed to reroute eventually. But yeah, placement was not a thing. I should have rerouted before moving a bunch of stuff, so this required some control Zing, and you can tell that went extra well. Things just did not want to cooperate with me at this point, and yeah, more rerouting. This is where it became a little ridiculous, and things not wanting to attach to where they were supposed to. I think the better option at this point was to just reload the craft file, but I just wanted to see if maybe I could get this thing to reattach on the base of that gantry rail. It was having absolutely none of it, none whatsoever, and eventually it stopped letting me click on things altogether. I went and grabbed a new fairing base, thinking maybe that's the problem. Yeah, that was totally not the problem. So we just don't save, load the craft file, and start fresh. Now back slightly where we started before, we'll just repeat the process, although in a much quicker fashion this time, because I have certainly a better idea of what I'm trying to do versus what actually happened. So we will take out two of the gantry rails and hinges, move the hinge to the very back plate, slide the whole thing forward, or backward, I should say, just a little bit, and there we go. This is going to work so much better. As you can see, we get double the articulation out of the gantry rail, which eliminates the need for a lot of it right off the bat. And with two hinges, this might actually work exactly as intended. Yeah, there's our ramp. This is what we have so far. So we're going to take it outside for a test run, and I will turn you over to old me for live commentary during the live stream. Close. I'm really hoping we won't. I'm really hoping this will kind of work. I'm hoping this is about the ground clearance we can get when we're sitting on the moon. I mean, that would be awesome, but, you know, we'll just... That gantry rail sounds like it's really unhappy with life. Okay, hey. Should probably make it so that hinge can articulate in the other direction. I really doubt this tipping is a problem that we're going to actually have, but it is interesting either way. And yeah, I think that'll work. That looks acceptable to me. So let's build out some stuff underneath it. Revert to VAB. So while we think that gave us a fairly acceptable angle, we won't really know until we have the landing section of the craft built out underneath the cargo itself, which is really the next step. Now that we have kind of a basis figured out for how we're going to move this thing around, and I don't know what exactly happened with the gantry rail as far as it clipping outside of the fairing base there, but it's retracted all the way currently, and if we shift it all the way back, that's as far back as it'll go. But for some reason, the part just sticks out a little bit, but it didn't do that when we were outside during testing, so I guess we'll just have to see if it still does it when we are outside during this next run of testing. So 4 pressurized tanks, 4 Asterisk 2 engines, and just a guesstimate on what kind of Delta V they're going to give us. It looks well more than enough, 3,500 when fully fueled, which should be enough for a targeted landing, and then a ascent high enough to get us well clear of the base before we pull the demolition switch. So we'll just throw some landing gear down and tuck this thing nicely into the fairing in the cheatiest way possible. Double check our articulation just to make sure it's not just me, and we'll take it outside for another test run. So once again, I will turn you over to old me for live commentary during the live stream. I'm a little confused. I don't know what we're talking about anymore. Well, that worked. That worked real well. I think we just lost the landing legs. Okay. That proves some stuff. We need better landing legs. And magically, the gantry rail is entirely contained within the fairing. I'm hoping it will be a good mission and not a crapshoot. Okay. The dogs are going to go crazy for a little bit. I greatly apologize. I can't tell exactly where the ground is, but let's get this rover off. I'm real sorry about the dogs. Decouple. Switch brakes. Hey, that worked real well. That worked surprisingly well. Alright, control from here. Can we drive back on it? Let's take the brakes off first. Yes. Brakes. Okay. Let's switch back. Other way. There we go. I'm pretty sure this is not going to work, but I just want to see. Yeah. I'll say Lady Crash just got home. So that's why the dogs are going crazy. No. Okay. Almost. Almost. Oh, I have the dumbest of ideas. Why does it bring up the controls for things that I'm not a party to? Oh, I can control all the robotics. Oh, this is interesting. Alright, come on. Boom arm. Why do your brakes not work at all? That's as far as the boom arm will go, huh? He is. Magnet on. Ka-thunk. I hope that worked. It did not. Dang it. Alright. Brakes. Driving. Alright, that might be as good as we're gonna get. Let's, Did something just break? Oh. Why are you moving? I'm not telling you to move. Did I do some numbers or something? Yeah, I'll say what I need to figure out some means of attaching the power couple inside of this once we're done, which probably means I'm going to have to, alright, well, let's get back into the VAB and then we'll talk about this stuff. Now, the initial plan for how to attach the power couple inside there was basically to include electromagnets on the floor of the platform. And being satisfied with such a simple answer, I figured it was worth testing out later, but I think we need a little bit more range and a little bit better articulation as far as our platform and ramp is concerned. So we're actually going to try to build out another gantry rail on top of this hinge and articulate it much in the same way as before. But for some reason, the top base is attaching to the hinge and not the bottom of the base. So we're shifting the rail itself instead of the instead of the mid plate, which is nice because it gives us all kinds of range of articulation for this thing. But it doesn't quite look like it's going to be able to tuck into the fairing quite well, and we'll see once I've got some of this stuff kind of grouped out a little bit, because man, if I could get this kind of range on it, that would be great. However, while retracting the platform back into the fairing shoots the end of the rail way out, and that is not a graphical glitch, that is actually how things are happening. So we're going to spend a lot of time trying to get this gantry rail to attach to the top of this hinge in such a manner to where the center plate moves instead of the outside edges. But it really it doesn't pan out for us. And it's super, super frustrating how absolutely glitchy some of these Infernal Robotics parts can be sometimes. I realize they're not the simplest batch of parts to create a mod for, so I'm completely willing to understand this bugginess. It creates a lot to work around sometimes, especially when you want to make something so simple as just a retractable arm for lowering a platform. It really should not be quite this difficult, but yet here we are. So in minor frustration, we abandon that type of solution and go instead for a pneumatic arm, which we will attach to this hinge and rotate 90 degrees. That should give us all the articulation we need to make this a thing, but we're going to need at least one other hinge here, which we will put on the end of this girder segment, and then a rototron, so that we can get the full benefit of the length of the platform also as part of this articulation. Slide it out, we'll angle it down, and then we'll spin the platform, and we can use that last hinge we placed as a leveling mechanism. Now, this is fairly simple enough. It articulates pretty well. I think it's actually worth testing this, but I've been getting reminded multiple times to reinforce the robotic structure with some struts to make sure it doesn't wobble around and create problems with the rover itself banging into the fairings on the way up, which is another problem. We're probably going to have to reinforce the fairings. But let's test this robotic structure as well as some new landing legs. So to do that, we will have to go get it outside, and I will turn you over to old me. Hey, the landing gear is held out. That's awesome. groups. All right. Gantry rail. Whoa. Okay. Yep. Struts on things. Oh, okay. Cylinder. Rotatron. Let's say, look, if you're extra good, I'll do a Mars landing live. I'm not sure I want anyone to witness what the hell this thing is going to do. Because this is going to be, air. And now that's flat, so that's a more accurate representation of how that thing will sit, hopefully. Alright. So far, so good. Let's turn brakes on now. Decouple. Move. Brakes off. Smooth as butter. Control from here. Brakes off. It's so nice having brake lights, isn't it? Oh, come on, you can do it. Get up there. Stupid hex panel. Takunk. Brakes. Yes. Alright, so. Oh, okay. That hinge is not doing what I want it to do. Yes. Rotatron. I think this works. I mean, despite being entirely too cheaty. Yeah. I mean, if you do things in the proper order, it'll work. Fantastic. Talk to the hand. Alright, I'm happy with this. Revert flight vehicle assembly building. Let's strut it up and take it on a very quick test launch for... Yeah, so the idea is now that we need to reinforce some of the joint structures, or the common structures at joints, to keep the robotic parts from bobbling so much as far as their truss piece counterparts are concerned, which of course means raising it out of the fairing base, which is a little difficult to do at first, but we managed to get there. And I was under the impression that if you put struts on a common side of the hinge, it shouldn't affect much. This is probably just my misconception of how these things work. But also, the plan was to place... those aren't going to work. So we're going to have to do this individually to the base of the Rotatron, because there shouldn't be any articulation here that those struts would certainly interfere with later. And of course, everything articulates exactly the way it's supposed to here in the VAB, because struts aren't really attached. But the plan was to put some separate, or some stage decouplers, and attach struts to those so that we can jettison these struts, the ones that are supposed to keep the entire assembly from shaking around during launch and during landing, when it will be going undergoing lots of vibration, stresses, and such. So it took some work to get all of the struts aligned properly, and of course I accidentally removed the fairing, which is not what I wanted to do just yet. We don't want to resize those fairings until we absolutely have finalized our design. And yeah, see? The struts are completely unaffected by however we move things here in the VAB, as they should be, because it'll let you test stuff even without strutting things. But we're going to build out a very basic rocket stage underneath this to kind of stress test the fairings and stress test all the robotic parts and see how they behave during a test flight, and also giving us the opportunity to test the robotics on the ground, where the surface might not be level, or there could be any number of other issues that we can't really account for on the launch pad. So basically what we're going to do is just attach an E1 to the bottom of a large liquid fuel tank. Stretch it a little bit so that we can get some good altitude and some good high G numbers out of this. We'll probably need some fins to control it and some launch clamps to keep it from exploding on the pad. But we don't really want to be over our avionics limit, first thing, and we don't really want to put it all in space. And to help us on the way down, since this was designed for the moon and not Earth, we're going to include some parachutes. That's just for testing purposes. Those will obviously come off before the actual mission is flown. And then a quick check of our staging, and things look well enough to go take outside. So here's old me for live commentary. So yeah, I really get irritated very quickly on how much RSS-RO crashes, which is why I had to cut down the part count so much. Alright, ignition! We're going to let this spool up and run for a second, because 1.06 is kind of sad. Yeah, Pulsified's got you. Clamps off. A very lackluster liftoff. I don't know if they spilled coffee or not. They might have. I would assume maybe. And thank you for posting that, Wookie. Greatly appreciated. I have to fly this thing, and by fly it I mean ignore it entirely while I just let it do its own thing. This rock, I'm laughing at both you and Pulsified. It's the pork rinds and beer rocket. All right, we're gonna angle back to the 270 just a little bit, so that depending on how high, we don't even really want to go all that high, do we? Oh yeah, we do. We want to stress test the shit out of this thing. So let's just lean into it. Doesn't matter where we land. Actually, the more obtuse a place, the better, but land might be beneficial, so maybe we should go north, not south. I don't want to go to Cuba today. We're probably going to overshoot Cuba by quite a lot, but if we can keep lower in the atmosphere, might be better. You want me to spin stabilize this? It's got fins. It doesn't need to be spin stabilized. Oh, Wookie, I'm gonna screenshot that. Kentucky Kev would be upset. Oh, are they shifting? Actually, yeah, let's, oh, we don't have very good roll authority because we've only got fins, but... Yeah. Well, that was super interesting. Yeah, you're right. Those fairings are wobbling around quite a bit. I was trying to stress test them a little, so... And Isaac, this is RSS, so this is actually a real scale solar system with actual Earth and actual Moon. And yes, I do in fact have a base on the Moon, and I have a crew on its way to Mars. Oh, we're descending already. Let's get rid of that. Oh, you know what would have been really great to have on this? RCS. Oh no, it's okay, dude. You're 100% A-okay, Isaac. I mean, I really appreciate you dropping in and checking out the stream. Good thing these engines have a gimbal. Alright, let's see if edit groups. Is this the actual clamshell? Yes. We have wings! We can fly! We'll save those parachutes until we're out of fuel. Oh, that was kind of my thoughts exactly, Wookie. We are actually, well, kind of slowing down. Thrust to weight ratio is not that great, 0.64. We're over Earth's shores. Oh, good. This is gonna go well. This whole test is for nothing if we do a water landing. I have no idea if RCS Build Aid would know what to do with this thing, or where it would assume the center of mass. I assume it's going to calculate the center of mass based on where the parts are currently. That would just make the most sense. I'm trying to get this thing to come down over land. Yeah, we have that Rototron up here. We could just try to drive onto the fairing shells. I don't know if we're going to make land or not. I'm gonna close up the clamshells a bit and hope... Oh, come on. Purchase additional time. That would have been smart. Come on, little guy, you can do it. I should probably just revert this to launch and try again. I know the fairings need to be reinforced. I also know that they need to be resized, but I think I'm going to wait to do that until not during a live stream. I also think that we're not quite going to make it. Yeah, I don't think our thrust to weight ratio is ever going to quite come up to the positive range. And really testing if this thing can land on parachutes doesn't really matter a whole lot, although we could test, make sure all the robotics parts work. Yeah, you're right. Alright, revert, launch. We'll just go up a little bit and try to land it, and then see if all of our robotics things still work. Come on. SAS up. Throttle set to full, ignition. Launch. Alright, let's see how badly I can pilot it this time. Yeah, I guess if we go straight north, we have to go a lot of straight north if we're going to get a solid landing out of this. So, let's try not to stress test the fairings just yet. It does make me sad, those wheels poking through like that. Well, thanks for stopping by, Pulsified. Greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you on Discord, and I'll see you next week. I should be going... Yeah, we're not going to run this engine to its full extent. Let's go west, young man. Panama City Beach. Scare the kids on spring break. I'm down. My in-laws they winter in near like Destin, but they get out of there before the spring break crowd shows up, and I can't say honestly that I blame them because I'm a crotchety old man. Negative 16 Celsius. Yeah, no. I would literally die. It's like 76 degrees in my house right now, and I'm still wearing a hoodie and like comfy pants and socks. If you name this thing Bodie McBoatface and it goes to the moon where there's literally no water, I will never forgive you. Although I will go ahead and go for the name because I believe in the democratic process. Alright, we're gonna kill it here. Stage it off. Oh, okay. That worked. That worked real well. Oh, I'd rather point you to retrograde. There we go. That should work, right? And we can totally open these things up. Yeah, maybe. Kinda, maybe. Alright. Hey, this works. We can totally use this on any atmospheric planet. That clamshell fairing provides a surprising amount of stability. Like, I'm not touching the controls. This is just doing it all on its own. We could use this for any number of, like, Titan or Venus or even Mars kind of systems. This is really surprising. So, if I fold these up, yeah, I know exactly how much authority I have, but the amount of authority I have grows based on how much clamshell I have. Like, there's a lot. That's full open. And a little less, but it does default into the airstream. Okay. I can dig it. You want to see the FAR window? Bring this down so we can take a look at it. Is it in flight data? Dynamic pressure, lift, drag. Yeah, look at that. Down to 22 kilonewtons of drag. That's pretty cool. Man, all the math behind that, it just amazes me. So, not that we're going to do it because it makes the ramp thing impractical, but I wonder if that drag figure and the resulting stability would go way up if we had 4 of these clamshells instead of 2. Alright, let's also get the gear out. Okay. Are those below the engine bells? Yes, but only barely. And actual altitude 2 kilometers. 96 meters per second. We should oh, I didn't adjust the parachutes into their own stage. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. Come on! No. Oh, that's gonna work real well. Why you do this to me? Straighten out, come on. Whew. Okay. We can kill that. And 7.6 meters per second. That's a little harsh, but we still got some fuel in here. 21 seconds worth. And yet I can't even land on a runway when I actually try. Yes. Perfect. Alright, let's FAR, you can go away now. Edit groups. The clamshell. Gantry rail. Seriously? Oh boy. Yeah, I think those struts screwed everything up. Oh wait, platform is strutted. Why did those not decouple? Enable crossfeed. They're still attached, but I can't decouple them. Oh great. With every success comes a new brand of failure. So this will take some reworking. As you can see, the robotic parts are not exactly behaving the way they're supposed to. I think it has a lot to do with those struts not decoupling properly. But that is just one thing that we will have to get to either in a future live stream, or it might just be simple enough to where I will take care of it off camera. But that's all that we got accomplished during this live stream that actually ran over. So we are putting the rest of it off until next week. Anyway, that's going to do it for this recap episode, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. And I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.